the only way awareness ever manifests in my experience is in connection with some object of thought. I know I'm aware only when there's something I'm aware of.
No.
No?
No. No. If I ask you now, are you aware? Where do you go? What do you say, first of all?
Yes.
And where do you go to find that yes? In order to find that yes, you have to go somewhere. If I say to you, is it a blue sky outside? You look. Is it blue? Yeah, just. You look, you go there. You come back and say yes, because it is your experience. Now, when I ask you the question, am I aware? You don't go back to what your parents told you. You don't go back to what you read in a book. You go to your experience. Where do you go? Where do you go to come back with this absolute certainty? Yes, I am aware. Did you go to the sensation at the soles of your feet and think, oh yes, they're tingling, therefore I must be aware?
No, I get your point. I just experience being aware.
Okay,
Yeah.
What is it that experiences it? You're right, you go to the experience of being aware. Who has that experience? Or what has that experience?
I can only say awareness itself.
Perfect. Now, what does awareness have to do to be aware of itself? Does it have to go and visit a mind?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
It's always aware of itself. It feels like that.
It's aware. Perfect. It's always aware of itself, by itself, through itself, in itself, as itself. It doesn't need a puny little human mind to be aware of itself. Its nature is to be aware. It is pure knowing or aware being. It doesn't need the agency of a mind or a body to know itself.
So this is where it sounds a little dual to me. It becomes like, okay, there's awareness and then there is body-mind as something other.
You're right. At this stage, in order to focus our attention on the nature of awareness, we are slightly artificially separating awareness out from the body-mind world. We're putting the body-mind world on one side, putting what we are aware of on one side, in order just to be able to focus on awareness. So the value of doing this is to precisely arrive at the experience you've just arrived at, that it is awareness that is aware of itself, by itself. Now, having made that discovery, the second stage is then to go back to the objects of the body-mind world that we have rather artificially put over here out of the way, and to ask the question, okay, now what is my relationship? My now refers to ever-present unlimited awareness. What is the relationship of ever-present unlimited awareness to these apparent objects of the body-mind world? And then we see, from the point of view of awareness, as we just did previously with the image and movie, screen and image metaphor, from the point of view of awareness, awareness doesn't experience the objects of the body-mind world separate from itself. That was just a pedagogical step which the teaching takes in order to focus on our essential nature. Having done that, we have to abandon that approach, because it is a limiting and, as you rightly say, a dualistic approach. We then come back to the experience of the body-mind world and see, actually, I have never experienced a world the way thought normally conceives it. In other words, something made out of dead stuff called matter that is at a distance from myself. All I, awareness, knows is the experience of seeing, and the experience of seeing is intimately pervaded by myself. All I know of the world is the experience of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting and smelling. And all these are made out of is the knowing of them. I, awareness, am that knowing. In other words, when I experience the so-called world, I'm just experiencing myself. I don't experience a world, an object, a self, a body. Experience for awareness is much more intimate than that. So first we separate awareness from its objects in order to spend some time exploring the nature of awareness, and then we collapse. In fact, we don't collapse the distinction because it was never really there. But we see that actually experience is not inherently divided into these two parts: a subject, awareness, and the objects, the body-mind world. It is not two. No subject and no object. And that is your experience. Look around you now. What do you know of a room or a world now? The experience of seeing and hearing and touching.
Yes.
Yes? Now go into the experience of seeing, hearing and touching. Do you find anything there other than the knowing of them?
No.
That knowing is yourself. All you find of a body-mind world are the experience of thinking, sensing and perceiving. And all we know of thinking, sensing and perceiving is the knowing of them. You are that knowing. You only ever know or come in contact with yourself. That's what the experience of beauty or love is. You know when you walk in nature and you feel completely overwhelmed by the beauty of it. What's happening then? Of course, we don't rationalize the experience to ourselves, but what's happening in that moment is that the separate subject and the separate object are collapsing, and we feel totally. You feel totally melted into the landscape. You feel totally one with everything. Yes, that is a collapse of the self that sees and the object that is seen. The experience of love is the same. When you fall in love with someone, do you not feel that you kind of lose yourselves in each other? I don't just mean just falling in love. The experience of love, of friendship. You feel one, intimate, close. It's the collapse of the subject-object relationship. In other words, in that moment you, the separate self, is plunging into its true nature, drowning in its true nature, and tasting life as it really is. When the mind comes back again, it says, I love you, because that's the only language the mind knows. That object is beautiful. No, objects are not beautiful. People are not lovable. Only the self, infinite awareness, is truly beautiful or lovable. All love is only for the self.
And I recognize that experience completely, walking in the forest and
Yes.
just being one with it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there is only happiness. And then someone says to me, oh, but you did it wrong, or you made a mistake, or you look stupid. And boom, I'm there. No, not the eye of
Yes.
awareness,
Yes.
but the earnest.
Yes. Okay, so
And then what do I do?
go back to the forest.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean it, because when you're in the forest, you're having satsang.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's what satsang is. You're having satsang with nature. In other words, nature, and this is the power of nature. It's why we love nature. It's why we love animals. It's why we have pets. It's when you're in nature. Nature is taking you effortlessly and spontaneously to this place, if we can call it a place, this placeless place. And you say, as you say, you find yourself there naturally. It's not that you feel one with it, but I understand why you say that. But actually, there's no you there anymore. It's just one seamless, intimate whole. Then you come back to town, and your friend, your person says to you, "Oh, you know, you're 3/4 of an hour late." Very
realistic.
And immediately you seem to contract back into that separate self again. So just keep going back to satsang.
Okay.
That means to whatever it is that takes you not intellectually or theoretically, but takes you in your actual experience to your true nature. Whatever that is for you, keep going back there again and again and again, until this habit of abiding there, being, not abiding there, you understand the limits of language, until the habit of being that knowingly becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, until a day comes when you walk back into town, you're half an hour late for lunch, your boss for work, your boss yells at you, and it no longer has the capacity to persuade you that you are a separate self. You hear your boss, you apologize for being late, you make up an excuse about the traffic, you just go to work, but you don't lose that the intimacy of your own being. And then you can practice this in more and more and more difficult circumstances. And life very often presents us with more and more difficult circumstances. You know, your girlfriend starts flirting with the next door neighbor, and then it gets really difficult. That has the capacity to make you feel like a very separate person again. Then she starts having an affair with the next door neighbor, and then it gets even more difficult. So the bar gets raised. And at a certain point, you feel that nothing has the capacity to take you away from yourself, to persuade you again that you are a separate, limited self. It doesn't mean that you don't feel, that you're no longer sensitive. Of course, you are. But it becomes less and less possible for an event in the mind, the body, or the world to persuade you to go back to the old way of thinking and feeling, and therefore acting and relating on behalf of a separate, limited self. And you find somehow magically, although the world may give you some tests, the world will in a magical way meet you in your new understanding, in your new feeling understanding, and your experience in the world will begin to reflect your new experience. Somehow experience in the so-called outside world will begin to shine with the it will begin to dance with the feeling that you have inside. And that's why I said at the beginning, the world appears as an inevitable counterpart to the way we understand awareness. If we think awareness is temporary and limited, somehow our experience in the world will confirm that. We will always be frustrated and thwarted by objects and people, and yet we will always be seeking happiness in objects and people. But if we understand that what we essentially are is ever-present and unlimited, somehow, magically, the world will appear in accordance with that understanding. And you will get little signs from the universe that you're on the right track.
Thank you.